Cyberstan has proven a tough challenge, that's for sure, but as the Helldiver fandom began slamming into the Borgs and bots, the issues with certain enemy types were immediately evident, causing much frustration amongst the player base, which then led to developer comments and players getting pissed off and pushing back. Yeah, there's a lot to this one, which is what I want to dive into today, of course with my thoughts on it all as well. Now, if you want to help support the channel, you know what to do. If you're on mobile, please take advantage of the swipe right to hype function as we dive into what the hell happened inside Helldivers. Alright, there seems to have been a little bit of a hubbub that recently ignited after developer comments were posted in the official Helldivers Discord centered around Cyberstan, but more specifically, how much we've been dying and how those deaths are being attributed to Cyberstan, the bots, the Borgs, and the bugs we as players have been encountering while taking them on all over their homeworld ever since the Machinery of Oppression update began. So let's take a look at what Fandomwire put together on the matter with their article published just today. It says, Arrowhead is asking Helldivers 2 players to lower the difficulty instead of fixing Cyberstan's broken spawn rates. It goes on with a further sub-headline that says, Helldiver 2 players call out Cyberstan's bugged spawn rates as Arrowhead encourages fans to simply lower the difficulty. Helldiver 2's Machinery of Oppression update brought Cyberstan to life and players dove headfirst into liberating the cyborg homeworld. What greeted them at higher difficulties wasn't a tough but fair challenge though. It was Vox engines clipping through buildings, stacking on top of each other and spawning in numbers that turned missions into literal punishment. When the community started pushing back, 𝗵𝗁𝗻, player support agent at Arrowhead, posted a motivational message in the official Discord that, while clearly well meant, didn't land how it was intended. And for those of you that didn't see 𝗵𝗁𝗻's original post, here it is, saying, the MO is possible, but it's not easy. Lock in, play cautiously, and don't die. I've seen players win impossible MOs dozens of times. Don't be afraid to lower the difficulty if you need to, or worry about full clearing if it's going to cost too many reinforcements. Play it safe. The most important thing is not dying. Good luck, Helldivers. Doomers have already decided it's impossible. Go and prove them wrong. I know you can do it. We'll come back to this post because there's more to it, and I'm of course going to weigh in as well, but for now let's continue on with Fandomwire. They say, the message itself was genuine. Don't be afraid to lower the difficulty if you need to, does read fine in isolation. However, when difficulty 7, which is supposed to sit comfortably in challenging but manageable territory, starts spawning Vox engines at the same rate as difficulty 10, the advice feels more like a band-aid solution for a problem that needs to be fixed with an emergency patch. Difficulty 10 being brutal is by design, and nobody's disputing that. The problem players identified was much more specific. Vox engine spawn rates at difficulty 7 weren't meaningfully different from Super Helldive, and the enemies themselves came packaged with their own set of bugs. Weak spots clipping out of reach when they spawn on top of buildings, missiles hitting from off-screen, and 2 or 3 Vox engines merging into each other created situations that no difficulty tweak or meta loadouts could reasonably solve. And from here, and I don't know if you can see it, it looks like Fandomwire has grabbed hold of a Reddit post that says, lock in, don't die, lower difficulty, and for me it's actually a little bit blurry, but that looks like a diver running to the extraction shuttle, and that's what, 1, 2, 3, maybe more Vox engines that have landed on top of a building overlooking the extraction pad, just waiting to serve up these divers for lunch. Also, the caption down below the pic reads, difficulty 7. Genuine question, do Arrowhead actually play their own game? They don't seem to understand that spawning infinity Vox engines and War Striders at once on missions where you can't even use Eagles because of the anti-airs isn't particularly fun. Alright, let's keep motoring on with this Fandomwire article. They go on to say, that last point stings a little more given the context. Anti-air emplacements on certain Cyberstan missions effectively remove Eagles from the equation, which strips out a key countermeasure that players rely on for armored enemies. Combine that with non-stop Vox engines and it becomes less a test of skill and more a question of endurance. Here's another Reddit post that I'm guessing posted a comment on that triple Vox pick we just took a look at, and it says, as someone who only dives difficulty 10, it's insane that difficulty 7 has the same Vox spawn rates. I remember difficulty 7 before the first nerfs, and there was no way it was that insane. going on to say Arrowhead hasn't acknowledged the spawn rates as a bug yet, and that silence is where most of the frustration is currently sitting. Which, if I can press pause for a moment, I can confirm, because here is the known issues board, updated 14 hours ago to now include the Bastion tank hitting cars. That's an issue, of course, that can launch the tank up into the air, but there's nothing here mentioning busted spawns on Cyberstan or Vox engines, or really anything to that effect. The last bit here from Fandomwire goes on to show the other side coming from players who have been diving on Cyberstan. Quote, "For all the pushback, plenty of Helldivers are enjoying the Machinery of Oppression update despite its flaws. The Cyborg faction brings a fresh layer of variety, and the Vox engine, when it isn't spawning 5 at once, is a genuinely interesting boss tier threat. Arrowhead still has strong goodwill within the community, and this hasn't undone that." The perspective isn't wrong, and it's worth acknowledging that some players genuinely worked through the difficulty curve and found the update rewarding on the other side. Adjusting difficulty isn't inherently a compromise. Both sides of the debate have valid points, which is exactly why a proper fix would do more than any Discord reassurance. For all the "we're so back and it's so over" cycles, Arrowhead Game Studios has built a lot of trust with Helldivers 2, and a patch adjusting the spawn rates would let the community get back to talking about how good Cyberstan actually is when it works like it's supposed to. Alright, what are your initial thoughts on Cyberstan and those apparently borked spawns? It doesn't matter if you're diving 4s or 10s. I want you to think back to your own personal experiences. Maybe it was a crazy battle trying to complete a single objective. Maybe it was getting steamrolled by 7 Vox engines at extraction. I mean, it really doesn't matter. Drop some feedback down in the comment section right now, because I've been hitting the Borg and the bots ever since Machinery of Oppression went live, but I've only got my perspective, which you've seen me lay out here in multiple videos I've posted to the channel. Now, this Discord post story continues, and since 𝗵𝘆𝗻𝗔's initial post, she has since posted a follow-up in an attempt to clear the air, saying, "I never intended to come across like I was mocking people for failing. There are bugs that can make deaths feel unfair. There will be moments where a death could not be avoided, and times when it feels like too much. But there are always ways to play the game in a more conservative way and reduce the likelihood. When I said I believe that the Helldivers can win, I very much meant it. And for players who don't want to play in that way and want to play the way they find the most fun, even if it causes more deaths, that is fine too. It's your game and your time." There's also been a number of counter posts in response to 𝗵𝘆𝗻𝗔's post, like this one I found over in the official Helldivers 2 Discord, responding back to one of her initial posts, and it says, "Mostly because it felt like you're mocking the player base for failing. Just lock in won't stop Vox engines from phasing through walls and cyborgs from spawning 10 meters in front of me." Which I will say is a totally valid point, and I've touched on that in previous videos. I can assure you that when we dive on Cyberstan difficulty 10, we are 1000% locked in, which, as this poster correctly points out, that doesn't stop the sloppy coding and Vox shenanigans from happening, like desynced blast zones, clipping through solid matter, stacking up 2 and 3 deep, and, you know, the rest of it. And if you want a full rundown of the Vox and the issues we've been experiencing, watch this video I posted, because the Vox engines are pain point number 1. However, the story doesn't end here, and just so I could get a perspective on all of this, I wrangled up the squad and we dove into Cyberstan earlier today on a difficulty 7 mission to see if we could experience what this article is echoing from the community. Crazy spawn rates, especially for the Vox, equaling that you would see on difficulty 10. And no shade to anyone out there that may have seen these things juiced up on difficulty 7 spawns, but we saw nothing like that. Sure, there were the occasional Hulks and War Striders, but overall there was a lot of like light and medium chaff, and the heavy and super heavy elite units were nowhere, and I mean nowhere close to what we are used to seeing on our normal difficulty 10 missions. Again, this is just my experience. I've also seen the pictures, I hear the stories, but for our missions earlier today, it was far more casual than we're used to. So that's point number 1 I wanted to make. Point number 2 concerns 𝗵𝘆𝗻𝗔's original statement. And for anyone that knows me or has seen my videos, I am not the slightest bit concerned about calling a spade a spade. But what she said really has nothing to do with the other. I read it through the other day and didn't think anything more about it other than it was meant to be positive and motivational. If anything, considering what her position is at Arrowhead, she's on the front lines of seeing and hearing about our issues within the game. We've all been pointing out the issues with the Vox from the first second we landed on Cyberstan, and there's nothing 𝗏𝗏𝗏 can do about it other than log the issues and pass them along to the people that designed the Vox engine so they could actually sit down and fix what is broken. Unfortunately for us, though, since the campaign on Cyberstan began, we've not only been dealing with Vox issues, but all the random and unexplained deaths that have chewed through our reinforcement budget. We've seen a hacker wreak enough havoc that Arrowhead had to pause the Galactic War and change up the entire major order, making it quite a bit harder for us to complete and led to us failing Phase 3. And now it seems the end is near, and we won't be achieving that final goal of decimating Transcendence, as Super Earth High Command has determined we don't have enough reinforcements to finish the job, and they are now requesting we try to rescue the trapped 𝗲𝗃 soldiers inside Solidarity, while the DSS commences a planet-wide bombardment, stating that if Cyberstan cannot be freed, it will be reduced to ashes. To kind of sum it all up from here as we near our final hours on Cyberstan, this Machinery of Oppression update was worlds better than Arrowhead's last content update, Into the Untested, but it was very much plagued with many of the same types of issues we've seen since this game launched back in February 2024. Cool concepts, awesome combat, and an interactive community war for managed democracy that is riddled with technical issues, both big and small. I'd love to get your feedback on all of this, but as I look back on it, I truly do believe in my heart that if the Vox issues were immediately sorted out, and if the random and unexplained deaths were corrected hours after launch, and if the anti-cheat and backdoor infrastructure was stout enough to detect the hackers' efforts, I truly think we're looking at a different outcome here on Cyberstan. I mean, I really do. But everything I just mentioned isn't going to ruin my overall opinion of the Machinery of Oppression update. Me and the boys have raged and laughed for the last week and a half, and I hope this isn't the last we're going to see of the Borg or of Cyberstan, which I think is probably my greatest fear, because we've seen Arrowhead do this time and time again. They introduce a cool new enemy, world, or missions. They're there, we get them for a few weeks, and then they take them away. But here's where you get to chime in with your thoughts on it all. Cyberstan, that article, the posts, the Vox, whatever. Leave some feedback, and let's get a discussion going. Remember to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. If you're on mobile, please swipe right to hype the video. And finally, to my awesome group of channel supporters, you guys are incredible, and I appreciate what you do for me, what you do for my content, and what you do for our community. Until the next one, this is 𝗲𝗏𝗶𝘃𝗀𝗏𝗃 signing off.